Hey, welcome to our episode of Chad's Beer Podcast with me, Chad of Chad's Beer Reviews, and I'm talking to
Mike
Mike
Beer.
versus Beer. What's going on, man?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm just throwing back another of a Land Shark lager that we just reviewed. I haven't had this beer in 13 years. I will say it's not bad.
It's surprisingly refreshing.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, or I did say on our review of this, I said you're like our first on the show. You're my first like TikTok beer tuber. I don't know if you know, but I've been doing YouTube since 2008. I would probably say I'm like the most senior beer tuber on YouTube.
I did discover that. Like when you reached out to me and invited me for this, I checked out your profile and I was blown away. I'm like, this guy has been pursuing this art of online beer reviews longer than anyone I know. And I got a lot to learn from what you've done, and much respect for what you've been doing. Like I had in 2008, I wasn't even doing beer reviews, not even close to it. So I appreciate everything that you've done, and I appreciate your invitation to share the stage and invite me into your domain here.
Yeah. I wish I actually kind of did a podcast like this, like, I don't know, 10, 15, like 2010, 11, something like that. And I forget why I stopped, but actually I've gone on like hiatuses on this channel. Like in 2016, and I didn't shoot or upload anything. And like there was like I was just like so burnt out on it every once in a while. And then I don't know what happened. Well, I just started just like I think it was funny because we were talking about Aldi before.
Yeah.
The Christmas of 2019, I got one of the Aldi Christmas Advent calendars. That's the only way you can get singles at Aldi. You got to buy the Christmas Advent calendar.
It's a great strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. It costs like $50. It's really not worth it. Most of the beers in there are like, eh. But yeah, basically, and then COVID happened in 2020, and then the summer of 2020 I started doing beer reviews regularly again every day, and I like kind of fell in love with it. And like we didn't really have like Instagram wasn't as big as it is now back, certainly not in 2008, and not even in like 2015 or 16. So
sure.
And then I don't know when TikTok came along, but I didn't even get on TikTok until last year.
Oh, gotcha.
When did you start doing TikTok?
So it's a good question. I started TikTok. So I just finished 3 years. So I would have started TikTok in 2020. And I started the MikeVsBeer channel. I mean, I was doing something already, and then I came up with MikeVsBeer and started pursuing my daily beer reviews on January 1st of 2021, 22. Yeah, 2021. So I just finished 3 years. And in that time, I've reviewed over 800 beers. So it doesn't quite add up to one beer a day. Although that first year, my goal was, okay, I'm going to do one beer review every single day, 365 beer reviews in the year of 2021. And I did it, and it just haven't stopped. But I dialed back just probably just to give my my gut a break. Not my liver. It was more my waistline more than anything.
Yeah, I keep this detailed spreadsheet of every review I've ever done. So I'm coming up on 1,500. I should hit that probably next month. But there's beer tubers that started after me, but have like way more reviews than me. Like there's this guy, Massive Beer Reviews. I think he's on 3,000 or 4,000, and Darwin's Beer Reviews. He's on 3,000 or 4,000.
Amazing. I've never heard of these guys, which is great because now I can discover them. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, it's the beer tube scene is like so different compared to TikTok and Instagram, and it's just not as popular as it used to be. Like, I mean, I used to, so last year I was doing every month, I would do a list compiling the top 20 most popular beer tubers of the month and like how many views they got. Yeah. And then I did like, top 10, top 20 of the entire year. But it's like, it takes me like almost an entire day to make that video. Cause like I have to go in a social blade and like
Yep.
manually type in each person's channel and then write down their view. Like there's really no way to automate it unless you pay for like a premium subscription through Social Blade, and it's really like out of my price range. And it's like if I was like making a lot of money on this channel, I still haven't got a paycheck on from YouTube on this channel um since I remonetized it about a year ago.
Uh-huh.
Um yeah, so it's like if I was making, tons of money on this, then it would be worth it, but it's just like it's so much work for so little reward.
I understand. Yeah, and that's I had been involved with YouTube with an entirely different commodity.
Mhm.
Um, and then COVID hit and it just shut that commodity down. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I have three sons, and now they're 26, 24, and 22. So it's not like they're children. I still call them my boys, right? But I want to
Yeah.
definitely establish their age. But in 2021, so my 22-year-old would have been like 19, maybe 18 at the beginning of the year. And TikTok was all the craze. It was really becoming mainstream, and I got involved with it, and I think I just was the benefactor of being an early adopter, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because TikTok is mostly used by young people
Yeah.
and like Zoomers, and we're Gen X, you know? Um,
Totally. Yeah,
yeah.
that's literally how MikeVsBeer started. I had a beer calendar, advent calendar from Costco. So that was a product that has 24 German beers in the
Mhm.
advent countdown to Christmas, right? And all I did for those reviews, I showed the advent calendar. I hardly was talking. I opened up the window, I pulled out the beer. It showed the beer. I might have poured the beer into a glass and it sat there, and I might have played Chris. I don't know that I even talked about it. I didn't drink it, nothing. But I was like doing it,
Mhm.
just putting content out there. And I guess that's a big lesson. You just continue to put content out there because you never know what's going to hit.
Yeah.
And then when I got through that beer calendar, a couple of likes here and there. It wasn't anything noteworthy. And I had a Pabst Blue Ribbon hard coffee. It sounds repugnant, doesn't
I
it?
think I
Like
had that
I'm
one.
thinking,
Yeah, I had that one. Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's like
actually really
blue.
good. It's 5% ABV. It tastes like a chocolate shake. It doesn't taste anything like Pabst Blue Ribbon. I thought it was going to be some sort of hard coffee brewed with Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. How terrible that would be. But it was a small can, and I poured it into a pint glass. And when I drank it, I quickly realized, oh my gosh, this isn't even carbonated. So so I,
Yeah.
I I just kept drinking it. In like 2.5 seconds. I drank the whole thing, and I was like, well, that was easy. And at that point in time, TikTok was purely 60 seconds. All the videos were 60 seconds, and I threw it out there, and it had like 60,000 views overnight.
Wow.
And my son comes in the room, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome! You got to do another. I'm like, oh cool. What's next? He's like, well, you got to do another video today. And I'm like, well, like what? I'll do another beer review. I'm like, okay. So I actually did a beer review, kind of classical, like what you would expect. I poured it in a glass. I took a sip. I talked about it. And he's like, I stopped the recording at the end. And he's like, what was that? I'm like, well, you told me to do a beer review. He says, no one cares what you have to say. They only want to see an old guy slam beers. I'm like, serious? He's like, sure. And I didn't think I was maybe older, not old, right? There's a big difference between those two adjectives. But so I was like, okay, I can do that. So I poured a different beer and I kind of slammed it. And since it was, I'd introduce it, I'd crack it, I'd pour it, I'd slam it, and then I'd say, and now, and I get cut off at 60 seconds. Like I didn't even give a beer review.
Yeah,
This is
it's
the
funny.
worst beer review. And that's what it took off. Everyone loved that one too. And so really the first year I was just slamming beers.
There's
And I
a
know you're a Cicerone. That's cringy, right? It's terrible, but it
well,
just worked.
I know there's another channel like this really old like senior citizen lady who does that. I forget the name of it. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
She's on TikTok. Sorry, I can't remember the name of her right off the top of my head. But anyway, I wanted to show for everybody watching on the audio podcast, or sorry, watching on the video podcast. This is Mike's TikTok channel or page
Mhm.
or whatever, and you have 162,000 followers. That's insane. And this video, this one right here, 2.1 million views, and this is just from like a week or two ago.
Just a week or two ago, the
I,
Brulette Challenge. And all credit to the Brulette Challenge. I didn't come up with it. There's a handle out there called What's in the Fridge, Brian. I saw him do it. I was like, that's kind of a cool idea. And the concept, if you're listening, someone buys you a beer, they wrap it in foil, and you can't see anything about the beer. You crack it, you pour it, and you rely on your sight, your smell, and your taste to identify the style. And if you're good enough, the specific beer itself.
Yeah,
And
a lot
I
of
totally missed the boat. I fell flat on my face. And just like social media would do, you can hit 1,000 home runs in a row. No one cares. But when you swing and you miss and you fall on your face in spectacular fashion, everyone shows up to laugh at you. And that's what happened with that one. It was total missing the mark. But as a Cicerone, you would totally understand why I missed the mark, Chad. But I say this gently, the uneducated just think I'm an idiot. That's okay because it worked out, right? 2.2 million views in less than a week. Insane.
Yeah, and it's funny because like TikTok isn't like YouTube where like most people will put like detailed descriptions. Like yours is just replying to Trevor Mystery Beer Monday and like what 4 hashtags. Like and there's no like metadata or anything, you know. And
The less is more.
yeah,
100%.
1,600 comments.
And probably I'd say 20% of them are, well, no, probably 40% of them are negative.
Yeah.
Learn how to pour a beer. This guy doesn't know anything about anything. Okay.
Yeah, let's compare your channel. Here's mine. So I mean, I didn't even start mine until last October. And you can see like maybe you can explain TikTok to me because like a lot of my shorts, because these are just old beer reviews that I cut down to 60 seconds or less, usually like 30.
Yeah.
And some of them get like 600-700 views. And then like it'll go like a week in a row where I don't even hit like 100. See how like these right here like 60, 64, 67, 52. And then the one I posted this morning is 679. I think like TikTok like shadow bans you every once in a while, or at least me. I don't know what it is, or it's like certain keywords, or if it's just it can't be like the actual beers that I'm posting nobody wants to watch. It's funny, like because I just posted my short of Coors Banquet beer, and you mentioned that in our Land Shark lager review, and I just posted my short of that yesterday, and I only got 60 views. Here's the Land Shark lager review from 13 years ago.
Yeah, let's check it out.
I don't have that shirt anymore.
Why not? 13 years ago. I'm certain I have shirts that are older than 13 years in my closet somewhere. Drives my wife crazy. Now, I can't hear anything that's being shared there on the video.
Oh, really? Okay,
when
never
it's
mind.
recorded and released, maybe everyone can, but the audio is not coming through at all. I can hear you just fine, Chad.
Oh, you know what it is? It's because I'm not sharing the audio. It's fine.
I understand. Yeah, it happens at work too.
Anyway, I wanted to show you have this thing called the beer caramelizer. Now, is this a product that you invented or just something you bought on Amazon? How's this thing work?
So check that out. Highly recommended to any beer enthusiast. Beer poking, or auf Deutsch 𝒂𝒅'𝒛. I'm the son of German immigrants. So Chad, brewing and beer is naturally in my blood. it's even more in my blood on Friday and Saturday nights after I tip a few, you know what I mean? But 𝒅𝒛, the
Is that Buffalo
concept.
Trace?
What's that?
That's Buffalo Trace.
Oh yeah, well that's a special one there. That's a Pepsi Nitro and Buffalo Trace. Typically, I do it with beers. As a matter of fact, I just did Founders CBS, the Canadian Breakfast Stout. I did the beer caramelizer, released that video last night. And Founders CBS, if you've never had it, it's insanely good. It's a
Oh, yeah.
great
It's one of my
11.6%.
ultimate favorite beers.
Yeah, you got it. 11.6% ABV. So the origins trace back to the region of Bavaria, Germany,
Right.
the Bavarian Alps, and they would heat up a rod and dip it in beers, sometimes in the winter months, to take some of the cold edge off of them. However, it really doesn't heat up the beer very much at all. The product you see there is manufactured in Wisconsin, okay, and it's
I just did a search on Amazon, and there's a bunch of products ranging from about $30 to $50.
Yep. The company that I bought that from is 1571f.com.
Oh, the
And
first one here? Yeah.
yep, that is actually what they say the average temperature of a campfire is, 1571F. I'm not affiliated with them at all. I'm not paid to endorse their products. I just think it's a super cool product for a beer enthusiast. So whenever I possibly can have a high malty beer in my hands, I'll use that beer caramelizer. My wife bought that for me for my birthday a couple years ago.
How long does it take for it to cool down so you don't start a house fire?
Good question. So you practice extreme care. You heat that thing up till it's practically glowing hot. You put it into your beer.
Yeah.
It instantly caramelizes the latent sugars that are left over from the fermentation process, and it creates a creme brulee style cap on the top. It's different than the head that you get, the carbonation head. That cap will sit on there for as long as that beer's in the cup until you literally consume it through drinking. But so you take that red hot poker, you put it in your cold beer, it's immediately cooling down. There's that heat transfer, conduction happening instantly. But I'm always taking great care to place it in a position where I'll have a block of wood where I can set it on there while it cools down to handling temperature after the fact.
Do you have like a tub of water or something that you put it in?
No, I have a 6x6 wood block. So being 6 inches of just wood, I can set the rod itself on it, and it will stay in place while it cools down.
Cool. You ever tried that on like on a fizzy yellow beer like this? I wonder what would happen with that.
I've done it on many different beers. I've done it on there's a beer called Tropical Beer Hug. That's a hazy IPA. I've done that. You saw the Buffalo Trace and the Pepsi Nitro. I've done that. I've done it on a Clamato. Oh, it was horrible. I got so much hate on that review because it immediately smelled like a Chinese buffet where they have the crab legs, like instant just searing of, it was so terrible. And the worst experiences do best on TikTok. People love to see you fail, Chad. Like, you are a certified Cicerone, so your beer reviews are probably so accurate.
How does the algorithm know that you screw up, though? That's what I want to know.
Jeez. Yeah, I don't know if I could figure that out. Like, when I released my I almost didn't release that Miller Lite one because, okay, spoiler alert, it's the one that did over 2 million views. And brulette, so it's covered. I pour it into the Viking horn. It's crystal clear. The immediate aroma I get off of it is green apples. So
yeah, that's acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde, exactly. I understand. And that acetaldehyde will only occur in light beers during stress fermentation, right? That's my understanding. Maybe you
I don't know
can.
if it's I don't know if it's light beer. It could theoretically be like any beer. It's just about like the yeast and it's yeah, but it's usually lagers.
Mhm.
Um,
Right, lagers, agreed. The
speaking
longer
of,
process.
we should have started this at the beginning. Like, what is your history with beer? Are you a brewer or a home brewer? I'm like you mentioned off camera. You used to work at Total Wine.
Yeah.
What's your like beer credentials? I guess.
Good question. So I did homebrew for probably, I don't know, 6 years, at least 6 years.
Mhm.
Really enjoyed it. Learned a lot. Sanitation, amazing. It's like a chemistry experiment. Every time you fire up your brew kettle and you start doing everything. And what happened is my wife and I were living in South Carolina. We moved away from home. Um, our first was born there, and I was on a golf league. I had a full-time job. My wife became a stay-at-home mom. We didn't have any family in South Carolina, Charleston, at all. And something in my mind says, you're gone all day. Now you're on a golf league a couple nights a week. That's just not a great formula for long-term marital and family success. So I sold my golf clubs and I invested into homebrewing. I'm like, well, I can do this at home. That keeps me at home. And you know what? I got a son eventually. We're going to start the Hartman Family Brewing Company, this fine German name.
Mhm.
And yeah, and we did that. Second son came, third son came, and I wasn't the sharpest set of skates on the cracker. Like, yeah, I'd be the guy holding up his kid to allow them to pitch the hops into the rolling, boiling kettle of
Right.
wort, as it may, right? But I learned a lot. And then one day I drove up to my local Walmart, and I'm in the beer area. I'm just like, this was probably in like 2002, roughly. And what is it? Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Okay. Yeah,
The green one.
yeah. And I just picked up I never heard of it. There wasn't no internet like we have today. Like something from Chico, California. How would we have any exposure or education what it is? It just didn't exist. I brought that home. I had one of those beers and I was like, I can't compete with this. I sold my brewing equipment. I'm like, for all the work, for all the labor, for all of the experimentation, and then when you screw it up, you got 5 gallons of bad beer. And I'm a tightwad, so I'm gonna drink 5 gallons of bad beer. Nothing's gonna go to. But I realized, man, I can just go up to Walmart, get a 6-pack of Sierra Nevada, and then the proliferation of microbrews started happening. In hindsight, I wish I never stopped, because if I didn't, by now I'm fully confident I probably would have opened a brewery somewhere, a small one, right?
I think it's well, in retrospect, it might be better that you didn't because like I think the craft beer bubble is really starting to burst right now.
That could be.
So many breweries are going out of business, and what you could do instead of starting a brewery from scratch is you might look for a brewery that's for sale and buy that, or just kind of like apprentice and like maybe you can buy you know not a controlling share but an interesting share ownership or something like that.
Mhm.
A lot of like I'm outside of Orlando, Florida, and there's a few breweries, one that's absolutely going to close, one that's on the verge of closing. And it's funny because like you know originally from upstate New York. Like the first half of this show was me in my apartment in Albany, and upstate New York has like a really good craft beer scene. And then when I came to Florida, like I think it's just like the difference in like the climate, because when I started home brewing, when I moved down here, all my batches got infected, like like
Mhm.
butyric acid. I was so gross. Like I don't know if you ever had a beer with butyric acid in it, but it tastes like somebody puked in it. It's like it's totally undrinkable. You have to just dump it. I was getting like wild yeast and things like that. So yeah, I sold all my homebrew equipment a while ago. I don't know, like
Right.
15, 16, something like that. Which is, it's fine because like I just don't have it. It was better when I lived up there because I had like I was in a homebrew club and I had a lot of friends up there.
Yeah.
And down here, it's like pretty much just me and my girlfriend, and that's it. And like we don't have like a there are homebrew clubs, but it's just like we don't have like this huge group of friends anymore to like share the beer with. So, and also like I get like all my beer online because
Mhm.
I live like in a freaking beer desert. Even though there's Total Wine and are a couple like I don't know boutique bottle shops around selling like Equilibrium and Other Half and whatever Bottle Logic, these like really expensive must have beers, like they're like so expensive and it's like they charge like more for a bottle of beer than they do for wine. I'm just like,
Wow.
so I mostly just get all my beer on Tavor and beerdrop.com, link in the description below.
Yeah.
um yeah, so I mean, I don't know which part of Michigan you're in, but I don't know. I would assume anywhere in Michigan, you must have like at least a pretty decent access. Like, where do you get your beer from? You were mentioning Total Wine off camera. I imagine
Yes,
there's got to be like actual like mom and pop beer stores around there.
there are. There's quite a few. I live southeast Michigan, part of Metro Detroit, just south of Ann Arbor, actually. And there's a handful of beer shops. Like I live in this town called Saline, and
Mhm.
there's a party store in Saline. Now Saline's a very, very small town. There's a party store here, and they probably have like 200 different beers in there. And I just walked through there on accident this past like month, and I was like, I had no idea this place existed with all of the like incredible variety. But yeah, there are tons all over Metro Detroit.
Yeah. So, were you in a homebrew club when you were homebrewing, or?
No, well, it wasn't a club but there was, let's say, there's probably like half a dozen of us where we worked in Charleston, and we were all brewing beer together. So it was a club, but not formally organized as a club. We just kind of traded notes and recipes together, brought it
Yeah.
up here when we moved back to Michigan, and you know, went to a couple of, let's say, like homebrew stores that would have brewing lessons and stuff on Saturdays. It
Yeah.
was, again, I learned so much about it. And yeah, it was just an awesome experience, even though I'm not doing it anymore. And in hindsight, I see, like Stephen Jobs talks about, you can never connect dots going forward. You can only connect dots looking backward on your life. And even though I had this chapter, 5-6 years of brewing beer, I don't think my destiny was to become a great brewer. Um, I'm working on, so I've got my TikTok channel, and I take that content and I republish it on Instagram. And
Mm.
we were talking about algorithms, figure them out, right? Exact same videos on TikTok, 160,000 followers on Instagram, barely 10,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just algorithm, right? I didn't do anything different between the two, but it is what it is. But on YouTube, I have at MikeVsBeer again. That's like my brand. It's on
I'll bring
YouTube.
up your
But what I
here's
started
your
there, and this is kind of was a vision when I started doing beer reviews. My wife asked me, "Are you really gonna do like a beer review every day for the rest of your life?" And I sold her on the vision, and the vision was this from the start: if I can amass a large enough following on social media about me doing beer reviews, I have this vision that one day there's going to be a network show, and the title of the show is Breweries of America. Imagine diners, drive-ins, and dives with Guy Fieri. But
Mhm.
instead of targeting foodies and restaurants, it is a series that targets beer enthusiasts. And what happens in that show, Breweries of America, is the brewmaster or the owner of the brewery gives you, the interviewer, a full-blown tour of their brewing process. Because years ago, that was available to a lot of people at, let's say, larger breweries, but for liability reasons, and it's a drag and it's a hassle, it's a lot of work. Many breweries don't do that anymore. But I started reaching out to local breweries that are like, heck yeah, this sounds awesome. So my destiny wasn't to become a brewer or own a brewery. I envisioned my destiny to host this network show, Breweries of America, with MikeVsBeer, where we call out or call up, let's say, Toppling Goliath in Iowa. And like Guy Fieri, I'm in front of a brewery saying, "Hey, it's MikeVsBeer, and I'm in Iowa, and we are at Toppling Goliath, and we're going to get a full blown tour of their brewing process." And I pitch that to every brewery that I talk to, and they're like, "When can you come here? When can you come here? When can you come here?" And the last one that I did was Founders Brewing Company in Grand Rapids. It's one of the largest micro breweries. I'll call them a craft brewery in America. And they were all over it. Their head brewer, 𝑔𝒔𝒕, was the guy who gave us the tour. And it was amazing. Like, we went from their pilot plant to where they brew 300 barrel systems of their brews, and where they do experiments in their tap house. It's awesome. But again, that I feel is where I'm supposed to be heading instead of owning my own brewery. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, the concept you're talking about, there were YouTubers doing that back like 10 years ago. Actually, here's one of them, Beer Nation.
Really?
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me.
Yeah, and they didn't really take off. It's just I think it's like YouTube it's not conducive to like these types of documentaries or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, or just I don't know, beer and YouTube doesn't really seem to maybe it's just an American thing because like in England and the UK, like the beer tubers over there, they get huge numbers. Like let me show you I don't know if you've seen Simon Real Ale Guide. He's under let's see.
It's funny because I spend about
I think he's
0%
under
of my time looking up other beer reviewers' content. I do mine and I kind of forget about it. So this is great when you're pointing these out. It's like, oh, I should check these guys out. Like, I don't even know they exist.
Yeah, this is Simon the Real Ale Guide or Real Ale. I would say he is the biggest beer tuber on YouTube.
Great.
And I don't know if you guys can see this, but like every video he posts, like these are full, 10, 15-minute reviews, and he's getting anywhere from like 1,000 to like 6,000 views per video, 14,000.
And he's doing brewery tours, or is he reviewing beers?
He's mostly reviewing beers, although he's done brewery tours, but like there are channels like that used to be dedicated to that. I haven't really seen too many lately. Actually, let me show you let's go to my channel.
Yeah.
If we go to the beer tubers. All right, I thought I had a playlist for this. All right, so actually I have a spreadsheet somewhere I can show you. I mean, I'll show it to you off camera. So this is my channel. I'm just not getting as many views as I used to. I did this Beer Tube Academy series a couple months ago where I was trying to show like other people like how to edit and how to make thumbnails and things like that. Because I subscribe to probably like 200 channels.
Wow.
And like is anybody who's doing beer reviews or beer content on YouTube, I want to see them, So let's just like here's my subscription queue. This thing would load. And you can see like everybody has like different types of thumbnail. Like here's the shorts. The problem is like a lot of people they do like whiskey and beer and or like video games or like it's their own personal channel and like they review anything and everything.
Right. Yeah.
People like look these like thumbnails with like no text or nothing. It's just a random screenshot or just a picture of the can or the bottle. I've been messing or like these like way too much text, I would say, with that one. And these are just the English speaking channels. There is it's funny, the person who gets the most views actually is a guy in Poland, and he does all his videos are in Polish. So, and there's no English subtitles either, but he gets like huge views. I think it's just an American thing. It's just I think American beer nerds get all their beer content on like TikTok and Instagram, or I don't know, the bowels of Beer Advocate and Rate Beer or something like
Yeah,
that.
that could be. Hey, I got a question for you. What software do you use to edit your videos?
It's called Movie Studio 14.0. It was originally Sony Vegas, and it just got bought and sold. And I don't know if you ever used Sony Vegas, but it's funny. The software I'm using now is like 99% the same as the one I was using in like 2009.
Really?
Yeah,
And
and it does have a
do it
lot
on
of
your laptop or on your phone?
no, I do well, I edit on my PC on my desktop here.
Okay.
I mean, I can shoot some stuff with my phone. Actually, I don't even have a digital camera anymore. I just use my phone for everything. Or
Sure. Yeah.
like this I sit at my webcam here, and I got my man cave studio here, which I've been trying to redesign lately. Like I turned the ceiling light off, and now I have like these puck lights with like I can match the colors to like the label of the beer. And I bought this mini fridge with a clear glass door. This is my
What?
Christmas present to myself last year. I should have got that 10 years ago, you know?
Sure.
That way people can see what's in the beer fridge. They can see what's upcoming if you take a close enough look.
Right.
I have all these signs and stuff. Actually, I don't know where it is, but I had one of these signs that said cheers, and it was like in like 20 different languages.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I don't know where I put it, but yeah, I probably have like too much stuff behind me. I have like actual beer books here, like homebrewing books and like beer 101 type books, like the you were saying off, Randy Mosier's tasting beer.
Yeah, I've got that around here too. And I got
I,
the
I
complete.
I recommend this to anybody like who's
Oh,
getting into beer. Like this is beer 101.
it is. I used to rely on Charlie Papazian's The Complete Joy of Homebrewing when I was
Yeah,
homebrewing, right? But Randy Mosier's tasting
I
beer,
have that one right here.
yeah, there you go. It's just incredible. I have the book and I had the audio book too, so I did both. I read it, and at other times I just drive to work and I'd listen to it. So,
Yeah.
or cut the grass and I'm listening to tasting beers. It's learned a lot from Randy for sure.
Yeah, I would say if you want to get into beer, these are your two textbooks: tasting beer and the BJCP guidelines. Although you can just download this as an app.
Oh,
Actually,
really?
yeah, I went to Kinko's or FedEx office, as it's called now, and had them print this out.
Right.
And it's still, I think it cost me like $20 to have this print out and like get a spiral bound and all that.
Oh, that's nice.
But
That's
I
not
prefer to have the hard copy.
right.
Anyway, I have a list of questions I usually ask everybody. Let's
Sure.
see. All right, so I'm actually not a full-on Cicerone. I'm only Cicerone beer server, which is like the level 1. Because
Okay.
like Cicerone is more for like the difference between BJCP and Cicerone is like BJCP is more for like amateurs and homebrewers.
Yep.
It does teach you like how to judge beer, and you get like whatever you use to judge commercial beer, you can use to judge homebrew and vice versa. Because like, and the style guidelines are written around like they're descriptive. Like they actually make a point of saying that they're not proscriptive. Like this is how beer should be. It's like this is how beer is. If
Yep.
that makes sense. Um, but you can learn like you have to learn a little bit about like the Zymergy 101, like basic chemistry and microbiology, like we were saying in the Landshark acetaldehyde, that's the green apple off flavor. There's also like diacetyl, DMS, phenols, esters, you have to know these terms. And like on my YouTube channel, I don't know if you've seen this or not. So let me show you my channel here. So I've been doing this show Tuesday Night Beer School for the last, I don't know, 2 years or so. And just like every Tuesday, we take a style out of the guidelines and we take 2 commercial examples and review it to the specs and judge it.
Oh, that's great.
So my girlfriend and I have been doing that for almost like I've been doing it for like almost 2 years. Her and I have been doing it for almost a year. We did wild beers for a while, and then we did saison last week. I don't know what we're gonna do next week. But yeah, these beer schools are good for anybody who's like looking to get into like beer judging. Have you ever
Sure.
judged homebrew competition?
I haven't. While I was working at Total Wine, they incentivized us to become certified Cicerone beer servers. Well, so
Mhm.
I forgot all about it. I achieved that. So you and I have that same Cicerone beer server certification. I never took it to the next level. I just
Mhm.
forgot that I did that. Yeah, I got that too. So I was more incentivized because as soon as you had that, you would get a free 6-pack a month, mix and match of whatever you wanted from their singles. So while I was working there, that helped provide content for my beer review channel.
Yeah. Now, do you work in the beer industry in your day job, or is it completely separate?
No, I'm an engineering manager in automotive. So
Oh, for like
I
GM
no
or Ford or one of
affiliate
those?
to the beer industry other than
Mm,
my honest, genuine passion for the love of beer.
mm. Cool.
How about you?
Uh,
What do you do for your day job?
well, I used to work in IT. I worked in IT for like 10 years, and then I just got burned out, actually, and I've worked for some major companies. I worked for GE, worked for Microsoft, I worked for Publix here in Florida, and, I just got burned out, so I went into, like, gig work, like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, Amazon Flex, and I've
Yep,
been doing that for going on 5 years. I love it because I work whenever I want, I take days off whenever I want, you know?
sure.
I can work a 18-hour day or a 2-hour day.
Hmm.
Although I do pretty much stick to, like, a standard, you know, Monday through Friday, like, noon to 8 kinda schedule. It
Sure.
does vary, though.
You want to
Um,
have sanity in your life, right?
yeah. Actually, my girlfriend and I's first anniversary is coming up this weekend, and I have this really special well, she's not gonna see this till after, so I have this, really special imperial stout bourbon barrel aged. It's from a South Florida brewery, and I got it because they have, cats on the label, and both her and I are cat people.
Perfect. You
So
found
she's
the
gonna
awesome.
yeah. There's actually there's a lot of good, like, craft beer bars around here. It's funny, it's like it's much easier to go find a good craft beer bar than it is to find a craft beer store. I mean, yeah, like, there's Total Wine and a handful of mom and pop shops, but it's not nearly as good as, like, when I lived in Albany. Um
Oh yeah, they were so regionally limited. And as you and I were talking before we started recording, I worked at Total Wine,
Mhm.
and uh, mm, okay, so I'm a former employee, and that I even though I was only doing it like 1 or 2 days a week, very part time. I told them only the beer department. I did that for like 15 to 18 months, because I just wanted to learn about all the different beers that are out there. It was just awesome to be in that environment. But whenever you go into any big box beer distribution store, the risk of buying old beer is astronomical. Like,
Yeah.
check your dates, check your dates, check your dates. I mean, just the other day, I was looking for a special beer for a friend, and I was finding beers from 2022. I'm like, are you throwing stuff out? But that's not their policy, because most consumers who go in there just aren't aware. So consider this the PSA to the general audience. That's an important factor. Don't take it for granted.
Now, aren't the distributors supposed to buy back old beer, or the brewery supposed to buy it back, or how does that work?
I think so, but I think when that happens, it's more of a hassle than just leaving it on the shelf.
Mhm.
I've been
Are they
in stores as well where the you'll find on the shelf these heavily fruited sours that clearly say right on label must be kept refrigerated. They're sitting at
Yeah,
room temperature. It's not, I'm like, this one's just wasted. This one's wasted. This one's throw all these out.
yeah. It's funny because speaking of fruited sours, I have a friend who is one of the co-owners of Urban Artifact.
Oh
You
yeah,
you familiar with them?
I am.
Yeah, he's been on my show a few times, on the Tuesday Night Beer School. We did, like, completely different styles, though, compared to, sours. I might have to send you maybe I'll send you a mystery beer.
Oh,
I
I'd
saw
love
you
it.
have
It'd be awesome.
Yeah. So you just wrap it in foil and then like, um, is that how it works?
Yeah, yeah. It's so my wife does it for me, or people have sent me beers and they
Mhm.
just show up wrapped in foil, and maybe taped to seal it, to seal that foil. You can't see any part of the label. You can't see the bottom, nothing. All you see is the top. And you
Mhm.
crack it and you pour it. And like we discussed, sight, smell, taste, can you figure it out? And what happened to me that was so incredibly successful, which was just an illustration of my failure, was a nice clear body like this, gold,
Mhm.
strong hints of sour apples, and I'm like, well, this has got to be a hard cider. But when I tasted it, I'm like, it's like a super dry hard cider. I can't tell you what brand. It was freaking Miller Lite.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it did so well. People were sticking around to see what it actually is. And when it was Miller Lite, they just shared it with their like, look at this idiot. He doesn't know anything about anything. However, you and I both know why I picked up on that aroma and that
Yeah.
flavor. Right? Like it's common. Like I didn't make a mistake. It was just kind of like a tainted
Was
example
it
of Miller
was
Lite.
it an old can?
That's a great question. I could pull it out of my recycle bin and check it out. I never
Hmm.
even looked back to check that out.
Hmm. Although old wouldn't give you green apple. Green apple is usually like they just didn't let it ferment long enough. Like they canned it a little too early.
Which is common with lagers. Like lagers are at a risk for that because it's a slower brewing process, right?
Yeah, I always found Budweiser was the worst of that. Budweiser was very it's acetaldehyde is like what is really responsible for the hangover and like there's now they have these probiotics or whatever that you can take before you start drinking to like counteract the acetaldehyde. But if you're drinking like good craft beer, and especially like pretty much anything that's an ale, like you don't really have to worry about that. Like
Right.
acetaldehyde is like either like an amateur homebrewer's problem or like macro lager problem. You don't tend to see it anywhere else unless
Yep.
somebody really screws up.
Agreed.
Have you ever taken the BJCP test?
I haven't. I've only to become a beer server, I took that test and
Hmm.
passed, right? But no, I haven't done that.
Well, I bet you could pass it because it's an open book test, so you could theoretically Google every question. But it's I haven't taken it. I took it back in like 2016 or 17. It's been a while. They may have changed it since then. But I mean, like mostly they want you to be able to like you have this book or the app on your phone or the website or a PDF or whatever, and it's going to ask you like something about a style. Like here, I'm just going to flip to something here. Like okay, wee heavy or oh, English barley wine. Like,
Oh,
do you know off the top of your head the difference between an English barley wine and American barley wine?
oh. No, I guess I can't say that off the top of my head. If I came up with any answer, I'd be purely guessing.
Well,
They should
the answer
ABVs for them to be classified barley wines, right?
whenever your question is American versus any other thing, the answer is always Americans have more hops.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But I mean, it's an open book test, so let's say like an English barley wine, what would be like the typical ABV range? You could just look it up in this book and you could see that it's I think it's like 8 to 12 or something. Yep, 8 to 12. Wow, I just guessed it off the top of my head. Sorry, it's too bright. You can't see, but
Sure.
um, yeah, it's 8 to 12 ABV is typical. I mean, that's um, again, these are just kind of like generalities. Like they're not like absolute must-haves.
Right.
Um, anyway, um, so like when you're reviewing beer or like tasting beer for TikTok or just for kicks, what's your criteria? What's your rubric? Like, do you are you more of like because like remember like we were just doing our land shark review.
Yeah.
I kind of like gave it like two reviews where I'm like I'm judging it like to spec as a beer judge, and I'm saying like for this style it's actually pretty good, but like for me my personal preference. So like I can give a beer like this like a perfect 50 out of 50 on the BJCP scale. But then my own personal preference is like, well, I don't really like that. And it's like, to me, it's like a, 6 out of 10. So do you have, what's your criteria when it comes to judging beer?
So it's really, let's say, personal preference per style. Like I try my best not to cross pollinate my scores. Let's say I'm never going to compare a Pabst Blue Ribbon with a Three Floyd Zombie Dust, right? They're two entirely different beers, but I can appreciate that American Pilsners and IPAs, West Coast IPAs, are two totally different styles, and they both have their strengths and weaknesses. So truly, Chad, in total transparency, it's purely how much I enjoy that beer with respect to the style that it is representing. I don't go through a rubric. I do look at clarity, and like I'll talk about all of those things, but it just gets down to the taste. Like, how drinkable is this to me?
Yeah. It kind of, and like the reason like beer styles exist is like beer styles, or at least like on the label on the beer can or bottle or whatever, is like that beer style is like this really quick and brief like advertisement of like what you can expect.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was handing this to you blind and I said this is a brown ale and it poured, golden, you'd be
Yeah,
like, get out of here. This is like,
yeah, we have a serious problem on our hands. I
yeah,
would totally, I'd call that out for sure.
or maybe if I said it was a German Pilsner or a Belgian blonde or a Belgian triple, I'm trying to think of like as far as like complexity, like or complexion, like what, or like even like cider,
Mm-hmm.
they might look the same, but then once you smell it and taste it, you're like, well, this isn't how that particular style is supposed to be. Yeah, so I mean, like that's like my criteria. It's always been like, you know, and it also comes the great debate among beer nerds, and especially anybody that has the BJCP certification. The question is, can you argue taste? And I always say no, but it's really fun to try.
Yeah,
Or to put it another way, are all styles created equal, or are some styles superior to others? Because a 50-point bourbon barrel aged imperial stout is much more satisfying than a 50-point, macro lager. I mean, if you can homebrew a beer that tastes like this, it's very impressive because of what it takes to actually do that.
sure. Yeah, you're right.
So do you think so are some beer styles inherently superior to others? Do you like to argue
Well,
taste?
well some people will they'll comment on my post, and let's say just a very generic example, like I might be reviewing a bourbon barrel aged stout, and they'll be like, "Oh, I can't stand that stuff. For me, I only like New England IPAs, and I
Right.
like IPAs too." But when I get a comment like that, I have like a canned response that says, "Hey, I always say to each his own. I'll never judge someone based on their beer preference." And sometimes I'll even put in parentheses, or even their beer pouring preference, right? Because so many people before my Mosher pour that I have to like, hey, you know what? If you want to pour your beers on a 45, I'm never going to call you out and say that's the wrong way to pour beers. Randy Mosher says in tasting beer, the right way to pour beer is like this. But there's other beer experts who say, oh, you pour on a 45 and then the last quarter you go straight in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's really
Actually,
comes
that's in the
to
Michael
preference.
Jackson book.
Yeah. And just like I would never like anyone's preference subjected on me, I'm never going to subject my preference on anyone else. So it's just much respect. Hey, if that's your favorite style, power to you. You like Pabst Blue Ribbon? That's your favorite? Cool. I can appreciate that too, right? So
This is from the man himself, Michael Jackson. And
Michael Jackson, he talks about it differently than Mosher.
yeah.
Yes.
Sorry,
Continue.
just the way that the screen. Sorry, I can't get this close to the camera without the light blowing it out. But
Yeah, totally.
yeah, if you can get this book, you should be able to get this book on eBay or Amazon for like 99 cents. It's
Uh-huh.
called Great Beer Guys. This little, and it's funny because like a lot of the beers in this book aren't being made anymore. Whoops, what happened?
I'm here. Yeah, a little glitch.
Anyway, we're getting close to an hour. I don't know how much longer you want to stay, but I mean, I'll go all night if we want. Um, let- are there any other beer people on TikTok or YouTube that you watch?
You know what? There are a couple for sure. Um, Let me start with the Homebrew King. That's his handle on TikTok. His first name is Larry. I'm drawing a blank. It's a really cool
Oops.
story. So when I started doing my beer reviews on TikTok, again, call it January of 2021, 22, yeah, 2021. Really, the only other guy doing beer reviews on TikTok. There probably was more, but the only one that I was aware of was the Homebrew King, Larry. And he's down in Bentonville, Arkansas. We're up in Metro Detroit. But
Oh, yeah, I just found him. Yeah.
yeah, he's great. He's a certified beer judge. Okay, so he's a level up from both you and I. And he totally does. Hey, the 50-point scale and something. So I learned a lot watching him, and we became, let's say, social media friends, dialoguing back and forth. But we actually communicated enough. We said we should do a beer exchange. We called it the Great American Beer Exchange, where I took a whole bunch of local beers from Michigan. He took a bunch from Bentonville, Arkansas, and we met in Springfield, Illinois. We just did a Google Maps and figured, okay, that's an equidistant
Halfway.
point for both of us. Yeah, and we met there, and my wife joined, and we did a brewery. We stopped at 3 or 4 different breweries, and then he took a big box of beer from me. I took a big box of beer from him, and it's just awesome. That's the neatest part about the passion people have for beer. You have all different walks of life. You have all different professions. You have all different backgrounds and ages, and we all come into alignment on, hey, this is an awesome product. With more complexity, I'd argue, than wine. You got wine snobs out there that, oh, I want this. I couldn't tell you anything about wine, but the 4 basic ingredients of beer: water, malt, hops, and yeast, and you get all these wild varieties of
Yeah.
flavors and profiles, like incredibly complex. Like, I'm such a huge beer advocate that Larry and I hit it off immediately. And he's way smarter about the whole beer judging like you are. You're way smarter about it than me. But that passion, we got mutual respect instantly just through conversation. So it was just awesome. But he's a name that I would follow for sure. I'd also check out, I think one of the better guys is What's in the Fridge, Brian. He's the one, like I said, that I learned about the Brulette Challenge. I love that name, the Brulette Challenge, right? Where it's all wrapped, but it might be at WITF-Brian. He's
I just found him.
Yep, there you go. Solid beer reviews. There's a couple more. Geez, I'm embarrassed that I'm drawing blanks. I see the guys, Brewy Louie. He's pretty solid as well. He puts out a lot of content.
Brewy Louie.
Yeah.
1971. Yep.
That could be. Yeah, he's out in California. So
I've already been following him. Yeah.
He has an awesome beer store by his house that, again, huge varieties, and he's always up for exchanging beers with people. So if you reached out to him and you could say, hey, I'll ship you these, and if you could give me some of these, like, huge resource there. And
That's
there's
the problem. Where I live is, like I said, it's a beer desert. I just don't really have anything to offer to trade around here.
Yeah, that's rough. That's tough for sure.
Are there any beer podcasts you listen to?
No. I only the audiobooks, like tasting beer, but podcasts, no, I don't.
Oh,
So I'm
I
very.
recommend All About Beer with John Hall. That's a good one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, check that out.
And like Good Beer Hunting has their own, and Kate Bernat from well, she does one within the Good Beer Hunting. It's like where they kind of go over the beer news of the week, which I actually thought about starting like within this podcast, like once a week or maybe once a month. I would just kind of like go over like the relevant beer news of the time, you know. I just want like I need like a co-host though, because I think like if you're talking news, I think you need like at least two people to
Mhm.
chime in on it, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, I got some standard. These are not lightning round questions, but all right. So, do you think it is easier to sell a lame beer with an awesome label, or to sell an awesome beer with a lame label?
Ha. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to go with the lame beer with an awesome label. It's a terrible reality, but marketing rules the day, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. Like half these beers that are in this fridge, I bought because they had awesome labels.
I
Like,
do the same thing.
this
Unless
one's
there's
pretty
word of
cool.
unless there's word of mouth that someone says you have to have this one. Exactly. It's the marketing that takes you there.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but reality.
Actually, you just took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna ask, like, where do you get your buzz from? Like, how do you know like what's the hip brewery or the next must have? Like, what makes you want to try a beer? Like, is it people you see on TikTok or Untapped or Instagram or just friends of yours? Or I don't know if you lurk the beer advocate forums or something like that.
No, you know what? I don't do any of the forums, but a lot of people through when I post, I get a lot of comments. Like there's a gentleman reached out to me and he said, "Hey, have you been to this brewery in Howell, Michigan?" Howell's like 40 minutes from where I live. No, I can't even remember. I said, other than your post, I've never heard of it. He says, "Well, I serve there on Sundays." I'm like, maybe I'll check it out. So I write it down. Or people say, "Have you ever had this specific beer?" Like the Russian Rivers, Pliny the Elder, Pliny the Younger. I never heard
Yeah.
of those in Michigan. Yet people started commenting about it. I heard about Three Floyd's gumball head for probably 6 months before I ever entered in out of the state of Michigan where they were selling actually Three Floyds. I found a 6-pack of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to buy this. So it's all based on interactions with people. Now, Three Floyds is sold in Michigan today, but when my
Mhm.
beer started, it wasn't. So stuff like
Yeah.
that. I love hearing when you hear the same names over and over and over again. It's like, I got to get that.
Yeah, here, I would recommend this book. It's called the Beer Geek Handbook, and it's basically everything we talked about, and it's got all
Yeah,
these like cool illustrations and stuff. Like if I wrote a book about beer, which I
right.
sort of did, um,
You did. You sort of did. You co-authored a beer about stouts and porters. I read your bio.
yeah.
Very cool. That's more than I've ever done. That's for sure.
Well, I didn't really write that much original content for the book because like this was stuff that I had already written, and the publisher came to me and said, "We want to compile these into this book, and we're going to pay you this much." I'm like, hell yeah. And they also sent me like they had connections so I got a bunch of free beer off that, and like I had to write reviews for the book. And it's funny, if I was going to redo that book now, like I would do it like totally different. It shouldn't just be reviews. I would rather do it as like interviews with the brewers and like kind of like what were they going for, you know? And
Right.
like have like really brief tasting notes instead of just, these are basically just beer blog posts compiled
Okay.
into.
A collection of them, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good coffee table book, I will say. Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so let me get back to my do you use Untapped?
I don't.
Yeah.
I get that question all the time. And the why I don't, I recognize I have a matrix that I track like you with my beers, and I put the date, the brewery, the beer, what my rating is, some general comments afterwards. But the time it takes me to publish my videos on YouTube, like or not YouTube, on just TikTok and Instagram, You know, the whole process of cracking a beer, pouring it, drinking it, rating it, then creating, let's say, editing the video, publishing it. I've spent a lot of time with the background sound. I'm into music. It's at least an hour for every single video. At least. I never less than an hour, forget about it. And then the idea of then going in and typing up a review after that, I'm done. Like my reviews are a video archive on my TikTok and Instagram.
What you do is you do untap before you do that, because that's what I do is like I would shoot the review like we just did. And then before I edit it, then I break out Untapped and I write my 250 character review and then I post that on Instagram and then I edit it. Although I will say if you while you're editing it, like you're going to it's going to reiterate all the same notes that you said. So like if you forgot, like you could just write down what you heard yourself say. Right. Also, I think Untapped's great because I mean I've been using Untapped since it came out in like 2010. Really? I don't know. I have like 7,000 beers or something like that. Let me bring it up. Right. It's also good because like when you're at the beer store and you can't remember if you had it, you can just scan the barcode and it'll bring it up and it'll tell you if you've had it before and like what you thought of it. And there's so many beers I forgot about. So I don't know, is this showing? Yeah. So I've had 7,164 total check-ins, 4,139 different beers.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, that's over, 13, 14 years.
Right.
Logan Cat wants to eat.
Yeah.
What's your take on the hard seltzer and non-alcoholic beer craze? Do you think these are like here to stay, or are these just kind of trends and they might fade away like Zima did 20 years ago?
Here's the thing. When Zima came out, it was the one and only, right? Hard seltzers, they are far too prevalent to ever fade out. And there's the value of the hard seltzer for the waistband conscious, right? That to be able to have 5% ABV and limited carbs compared to having beers, I think there's a value there, especially in our society where people care more and more about their general outward appearance. So I think the hard seltzers are going to stay, but I think the total number that survive in the next 5 years, kind of like you mentioned prior, craft beer may have peaked and is heading down with some of the smaller ones disappearing. I think that might happen. I think there's some that are just trying too hard, like Bud Light has their soda pack hard seltzer where they got like root beer and they got orange and they got like 7-Up flavor, lemon lime, and something else. And it's like, I scratch my head. And if that is just not blatantly targeting teenagers, I don't know what is, right? Because I can't imagine any mature palate saying, I want 3 or 4 root beer hard seltzers, so I think those crazy things will go away, but the bigger brands will continue to stay relevant.
Yeah, like White Claw, Truly, and all that.
Yeah. Happy Dad probably is another one.
I think Truly is a Sam Adams product.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, Boston Beer Company. They also own Angry Orchard, Twisted Tea.
Right.
There's a few others.
And of all the hard teas I reviewed quite a few. Twisted Tea is, I mean, in my mind, they're the originals and they're the best. There's a lot of, like, I've had something called Beatbox. I don't mean to bring up specific names, but I just did. It's like 10 or 12% ABV. It's just painful to try to stomach. It's like, oh
yeah. You have Four Loko?
Yeah, I got a category on my TikTok page called Pain. Worst of the worst. And yeah, I probably reviewed at least 10 different Four Lokos. And that was something that people, when I started off, oh, you gotta do a Four Loko, you gotta do a Four Loko. And then I did a Four Loko. I'm like, awful, terrible, whatever.
I reviewed Four Loko like 15 years ago when it still had the caffeine in it.
Oh, that's insane.
Remember that?
I understand.
That was like the most bizarre experience because it's like you're absolutely hammered, but at the same time, you're also like so hopped up on all this caffeine you just drank. So it's like you want to like run a marathon in like slow motion. It's like
Crazy.
you're, yeah. Do you cellar beer?
You mean like store beers downstairs for long periods of time?
Yeah.
I do have some. I've got some heavy bourbon barrel aged beers. I got a Goose Island from like 2017 downstairs. I've got a small, like I got less than a case, but I have some down there for sure.
Yeah. There's two guys on YouTube you should check out. End of the day beer reviews. This guy has a full his entire basement is like this finished basement bar. It looks like a bar like you would like 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 it would be like on a street, you know? And he had like every Bourbon County variant ever made.
Oh my gosh.
And the no hype beer reviews, like he literally does his show in his basement and like he's surrounded by his cellar of like beers going back like 10, 15 years. Like he waxes all the caps and everything so they don't
Wow.
get oxidized.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen that. I've got actually a couple beers like that. I can tell you which ones they are, but they are all stouts.
Let's see. Here's a tough question. Which U.S. state is making the best beer?
That's a great question. That's a freaking awesome question. I love that question.
Most people just put their own state.
Well, I would lean heavily towards Michigan. I mean, Grand Rapids is known to be beer city. They have so many breweries there. I mean, Founders is in Grand Rapids. We got Bell's in Kalamazoo. Too many to name, but some very good beers. So I bring this up when I was in Total Wine. California has some good beers. The Pacific Northwest are really good as well. And then you got the New England states, Louise. Yeah, I'll probably stick with Michigan though, my home state.
Yeah.
What
I
what?
mean, between Founders and Bells, I mean, those are two good ones right there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When I was in Total Wine, we would have a section for craft beers, the left and the right half. The left half were craft beers from across the United States. The right half was craft beers from Michigan.
Yeah,
Like,
the stores here, they have like yeah, one aisle like just local, Florida beer.
yeah, so it's
Other,
similar there. But
I don't know.
I was out to consumers that were coming in and looking for beers, and I'd say, so one thing you got to recognize, and I'd ask them, what's the number one ingredient in beer? And they're most of the time they either say malt or hops. And I'm like, well, actually, the number one ingredient is water, right?
Yeah,
Clearly water. In Michigan, it's the Great Lakes state. Like we have some of the best water in the world right here, which directly affects your ability to brew beer. Like Arizona is not known to be the hotbed of great beer. Not to disparage Arizona, because Kilt Lifter is down in Arizona, and I heard about that forever, and it's just not sold here. So when we did a canyon tour in Arizona, my wife and I last year, and the first place that I went that had Kilt Lifter, I'm like, I gotta have this. And I was blown away how good it was, right? But that's one example, and I could probably list 20 examples off the top of my head of fantastic Michigan beers because of just volume, right? And it all goes back, what's the quality of water available? And the Great Lakes State, what it is, right?
Yeah, I think it's just the difference between North and South. Like the tap water in Florida is like has so much chlorine in it. Like in last August, me and my girlfriend went to my hometown, and I remember like one of the first things we did when we went to my parents' house, the house that I grew up in, that they've
Yeah.
lived in since like I don't know, I think like Nixon was president.
Wow.
I just like poured a glass of water off the tap, and I was like, "Here, drink this." And she's like, "Wow, this is really good." Like it's just tap water, you know. And in Florida, it's like drinking water out of the pool. It's
Yeah. But yeah, that's so important. So let me ask you, what do you think? You're kind of impartial. So what state brews the best beers?
I would probably say like New York, or I mean, being like, yeah, New York or California. I mean, they also just, I think those states just have like the most breweries too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not I mean, here in Florida, we basically just lost Cigar City. I don't know if you heard about that. Like Monster Energy Drink Company, they bought this conglomerate called Canarchy, which is like Oscar Blues and Cigar City, and they fired everybody in the Tampa Cigar City brewery,
Oh my
and they're
gosh.
yeah, and they're moving all Cigar City beers are going to be made in North Carolina in Nashville, and they're turning the Cigar City brewery into like basically like they're going to make like hard monster there now. No, you ever seen the hard
Terrible.
monster?
Yeah. eh, Dumb idea. Who
Yeah,
wants
I
that?
agree. Yeah. There's
Stupid.
also Funky Buddha down towards Miami, which they sold out to Constellation a few years ago, but then they actually bought their then they I don't know what the opposite of selling out is. It's where they bought their company back and now they're independent again.
Wow.
Although Funky Buddha kind of lost a lot of their cachet when they sold out. They just don't really make like the big cool beers like I don't know if you ever seen or had the Last Buffalo in the Park. That's kind of like their Bourbon County.
No, haven't
Uh,
heard of.
it's it's really I don't know if they even make it anymore, but it was like imagine like a gourmet like chocolate covered donut with coconut sprinkles in beer form, you know,
Sounds
and
amazing.
then bourbon barrel age that.
Wow.
Speaking of which, are you more impressed by like a 15% ABV bourbon barrel stout or a like 3.5% bitter or sour? Like like to me, like my one of my favorite surprises in beer is when these tiny low alcohol beers, especially like the British type like cask beers or the German like a Kolsch, you know, low ABV beers that have tons of flavor. That to me, that's more impressive than a 15% barley wine with chocolate and caramel and bourbon barrel aging, you know?
Hands down, 100% of the time, I'll take that 3.5 percenter compared to
Mm,
the center. And I was going to. You mentioned Kilsch. So again, my parents are German immigrants. So every third summer I'd spend in Germany. I was an exchange student in Germany in college, near
speak the
Cologne.
language?
Ja, aber ich habe es
Mhm.
zu Hause gelernt. So wir können reden Deutsch einfach. So, but I was an exchange student in Aachen, which is west of Köln, and Köln is really the only place in Germany where Kirsch is brewed. I mean, the name Kirsch comes from
Yeah.
Köln, right? And there's a place called the Fruh House, F-R-U-H. And if you and I were to go and sit in the Fruh House, we sit down and the server comes up immediately and they have this tray and they'll just ask you, 6, 7, 8, and you'll say 8, 8. This is how they do eights over there. They don't
Mm,
do 4 and 4, it's 5 and 3.
mm.
And all of a sudden, boom, 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 we all have these 8.2 liter glasses, like 0.2 liters. It's
The
like,
little strange
yeah,
I
they're
have
very
one of those.
thin profile and a very small volume. Oh, look, you probably have some Kilf glasses, right? I hear them clinging around back there. There you go. Yeah.
Actually, this one's big. This is a 0.4 liters.
Yeah, that's like a double.
Mhm.
But you get these 0.2s, and like when you pick one up, you're gonna empty it. That you don't hang out drinking a 0.2 liter glass. And it is so much fun, and there's so much great subtle flavors in it that,
Yep.
oh yeah, if we could sit down and have 6 or 7 of those glasses or one big glass of a 15%er, I'm not into the 15%er. I enjoy the small experience over and over again.
Yeah.
It's just way more. It's lighthearted. It's fun. It's almost like that brew. Those beers reflect like some personality traits. Like that 3.5% is lighthearted spring
Yeah.
fun that you're gonna enjoy at 70 miles. Not that you're driving in a car, but it's just fast and fun. But that big heavy, man, you're gonna sit down and have a serious conversation while you have that. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing lighthearted about it in the least bit.
Yeah. One of my other favorite things about beer is when there's ingredients that you wouldn't think would work together and they do. Like, you ever had like a raspberry jalapeno beer?
I
Like
have, but
you
it's
wouldn't think raspberry and jalapeno would work, but they do. Or
uh-huh.
a lot of these like hot chocolate stouts, as they're called now. Um, I actually won a homebrew competition with a hot chocolate stout recipe. I did. In fact, do you use homebrew software? I forget what it's called. I think BeerSmith, I think it's called.
Well, when I brewed beer, there was no softwares about them,
Hmm.
so no, I did.
I could send you I could send you some of my recipes if you want to start homebrewing again. But I made I don't know if you ever had Westbrook Mexican cake. So it's like you take like, like a porter or a stout dark beer like that. And then well, I got like some raspberry puree or cherry puree, right? And at the
Yeah.
time I used to grow Trinidad scorpion peppers in my backyard, like just for fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And like one little pepper, like the size of a walnut. Like like you just make your porter or stout, and I think I did like some vanilla beans and cherry puree. You throw that in there for a few days, and then like about 24 hours before you bottle it, you take one of these super hot peppers, slice it open, throw it in the bucket, come back 24 hours later, and it's this awesome, like it's like chocolatey, but also you get a little tart from the cherry. You ever had like Bell's cherry stout? Like
I
it's
have.
similar.
Yeah.
Imagine like Bell's cherry stout, like more plus, like more chocolatey, and then it finishes like with this warming sensation from the pepper. You don't really taste pepper, but
Uh-huh.
you get this warming sensation. I think, and it wasn't even too strong. I think it was like maybe I don't know 7 or 8% ABV. It wasn't like super strong. And
Right.
yeah, I won a couple of homebrewing competitions with that recipe, and I called it Chad's Chocolate Cherry Chili Porter.
That's a great name, man. Super
Yeah.
cool.
Sometimes you start with a name and you reverse engineer the beer just to make something for the name, you know?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Did
Very,
you ever have
very.
any funny names for your homebrews?
Um, let's see here. I had the Muhammad Ali Knockout Stout. I like that one. Um, I
Was it like
had
an
my
Irish stout?
what's that?
Was it imperial stout or just like a
It
Guinness
was
type?
a licorice. I had a licorice stick that I put in there that affected the flavor nicely. But I want to say it was only like 6% ABV, but I just like the flow of that name. I had the let's see here, the nuclear cherry bomb where I put in it was a wheat ale and I put in I want to say 2 quarts of freshly pitted Michigan cherries into the fermentation tank. And what
Mhm.
happened that night, because the fermentation party was happening. It was just rocking and rolling. Everything was happening inside there, and a freaking cherry got lodged in my in the gooseneck air lock, where supposed to burp. And I
Yeah.
went downstairs and I saw all the evidence of fermentation and it wasn't bubbling. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, I was confused for a second. And then I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a cherry in the airlock,
Mhm.
sealed it. So now I have a pressure vessel, a glass pressure vessel. I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to be good. Now we just relocated from South Carolina back to Michigan. We were living with my in-laws. I started brewing in their basement, which they just had finished basement. And with that cherry in there, I literally just touched the bung plug and it just blew.
Mhm.
And it blew the top off the entire bung was exposed, and all that top frothy stuff got blown up onto my in-laws brand new drop ceiling. And I was, oh my gosh. So that became the nuclear cherry bomb. So it was relevant and a good name, and the beer was pretty good. But I had a
Yeah.
lot up to do. I was just like, oh my gosh, they're gonna think I'm such an idiot, and they probably did. But we've been married for let's see here. This is 2024, so we're going on. If I do the math, oh, 28 years, going on 28 years, going on 28, 29 years right now. So we survived that.
Congratulations.
Thank
All right,
you.
I'll get you out of here on this question.
Okay,
This one,
so
this is a stumper. This stumps everybody. What is the plural of Guinness?
Genesee, Guinness, Guin.
Yeah, is it Genocide?
Yeah, I think.
Genesis?
What is it?
I don't know. Nobody knows. I think it's just a lot of people say it's like deer or sheep, where it's Guinness, whether it's one or a
Yeah,
million.
yeah. If I want 3 Guinness stouts, it's just 3 Guinness.
Yeah,
That's what I'm gonna say. So, well,
I think
I
it's more fun to
hey,
say Guinnesses though.
Chad, you're really good at what you do. You understand beer from a technical standpoint way more than me. I got a lot of respect for you. I appreciate you reaching out to me and inviting me into your domain here. So thank you. It's an honor to share so much time with you. You've been very generous. So thanks.
Cool. I'll try to send you a little care package if I can. It's funny that address that's on your TikTok. That's not your house, is it? It's like a PO box. I hope.
Yeah, it's a UPS box.
Okay. Yeah. Hope nobody sent you something that wasn't good.
Well, almost everything that has been sent to me has been fantastic. One guy literally took a 6-pack of Yingling
Mhm.
Hershey chocolate porter
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
in bottles and put the 6-pack in a box and then put a label on it and shipped it to me. And it got there, and they had put that box in a big plastic bag, and they're like, we don't know what's in here, but the entire thing is wet and it stinks.
Yeah.
And only of the 6-pack, one actually survived.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know how to mail beer properly. So you gotta wrap it in
Oh,
Ziploc bags and bubble wrap and
oh, you understand it, and
Hmm.
if you can, cans are preferred. But they literally took a glass 6-pack, put it in a box, closed box. It wasn't tightly isolated or anything. It's just crazy, but funny story. That was the worst thing that ever showed up, and I still got a beer review out of it, so it was much appreciated. So
actually, I got a bonus question for you. Are you into whiskey?
I enjoy bourbon more than whiskey, but I like whiskey, bourbon, even Irish. What is Jameson? Jameson is
That's
Scotch.
Irish.
I like all of that.
No, Jameson's Irish, like because it's like
Irish.
bourbon and Scotch are whiskey's like an umbrella term. It's like basically, like anything. It's funny because like whiskey is basically beer that's been distilled because it's just
Yeah,
malt, but they tend to use like a lot more rye and corn and things like that. Because I started a new show. I'm trying to like get into whiskey. Like I got a bottle of Buffalo Trace here, so like I'm trying to do it like once a month. I'm doing like Whiskey Wednesday. So
nice.
if you want to do a Whiskey Wednesday with me, because it'd probably be a lot easier for us to get the same whiskey than it is to get the same beer. You know?
Probably.
Yeah. All right. So I will put links to everything of yours in the show notes. I mean, TikTok and Instagram is probably your biggest, um, channels or outlets or whatever. Are you on Twitter or
Um,
X as it's called now?
but nothing with MikeVsBeer. It's really like just an old account
Oh,
that
okay.
I have leadership development stuff on there. But I do have a Substack as well, which is like a newsletter
Uh-huh.
that.
Oh, I saw that on your link tree.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I published some things. I just published a piece yesterday about, hey, learning to laugh at yourself, and I captured some of the best negative comments from that 2 million plus views. Miller like misread, and I throw in some life lessons in there as well. So not that that's what I do all the time. Like that it's a pretty good piece that I wrote. It took me a couple hours. Usually they're like maybe 15 minutes just throwing stuff out there, but I'll announce, hey, I'm going live on this night or whatever if you want to join or whatever. But that's just another avenue. That Instagram, TikTok, and the YouTube for the breweries of America. That's where
Oh,
my primary domains are.
yeah. I would say all your stuff you post on TikTok, you could also post as a short or a regular on YouTube, and just you post more content. Like, you build up an audience there too.
Yeah, you know what? Since I have the content, it probably would be easy to do. Um, does YouTube block content with music? I think they do.
Yeah, yeah, I noticed, like, on some of your TikToks, you had, like, pop music on there, like,
Yeah,
Stevie Ray Vaughan or something. So, I
yeah,
mean, you'd have to actually license it on is your TikTok monetized?
it is.
Okay. What's the threshold before you get monetization? Because on YouTube, you need I think it's like 1,000 subs and 1,000 watched hours or something like that. I don't know what it is,
Gosh,
but
you know what?
I make I make pennies on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a better question for Google. Um, I got monetized that first year, and it changed how I could post things, and it changed what, let's say, music I could publish. Like I can't put original, let's say, studio release tracks on any of my material. I
Mhm.
always have to find live versions of songs or cover versions and stuff like that. Um, but it does make it a little bit more difficult. And look, I'm not retiring from that monetization at all. I drink my beer for free pretty much. And I'm happy to do that. I've achieved
That's why I
every
do this channel. Just
right.
trying to get free beer, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, well,
Alright.
Chad, and I really appreciate hanging out with you. I wish you a happy Easter. I hope you have a great weekend,
You
and
too.
we'll be in touch in the future. Take care, bud.
This show will drop on Easter and our beer review, so,
Oh, awesome. I'll check
yeah.
them out.
Alright. Hopefully, you can send, just a tiny little fraction of those 165,000 followers of yours my way.
I hope some of them see this and check you out as well.
Yep. Alright, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching or
Take
listening.
care.
Yep.
Good night.
Bye.